Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted, a slightly spooky edition since we're getting into the Halloween season here. If you're joining us tonight, if you'd like to give us a call, our lines are open right now. You can call us at 512-991-9242 or through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Every week on Truth Wanted, we have a special guest, and this week is extra special. We have Trevor Poelman from the podcast Believe It or Not. Hi, Trevor.
Hey, how's it going? Or should I say R? Because the...
Yeah. Yeah, we decided to dress up a little bit because Halloween's coming up here, and we've got some stuff later on in the show. This is going to be a really, really fun weekend here at the ACA. So I convinced Trevor to dress up, and so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So Trevor, I've been a fan of you for a while. I discovered you have a podcast called Believe It or Not. I discovered you a while back, and I find your podcast both hilarious and really insightful. Do you want to share a little bit about maybe where you come from, like your journey towards having a podcast and what your podcast's about?
Yeah, sure. So I was, I grew up Christian. I grew up in the evangelical world. And then I went to Bible college and I became a youth pastor, all that, stuff. And then when I walked away, I was like interested in comedy and things like that. And eventually started a different podcast, like a comedy podcast. And then eventually I was like, I was still interested in religion and that kind of whole world. So I was like, well, why don't I, study more about, the weirder parts of religion or the more interesting parts of religion, or just like, religion in general, and do some Googling and then talk about it with my bud Damien.
Yeah, so. You have a friend who joins you on the podcast, and you guys kind of go back and forth. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he maybe wasn't raised quite the same way. So a lot of the podcast is like you kind of explaining to him some of these things, and he is kind of like, yeah, that sounds really that's really bizarre.
Yeah. He's been to church maybe twice in his life. Yeah. And because I think he had an ex-girlfriend whose family was religious. So but right. That was pretty much the extent of it for him. So a lot of it is like, what?
Yeah. And you do a lot of research. I know that I learn a lot whenever I'm listening to your podcast. You do your research on the topic, and you bring up things you dig into the history of these things. Where did these this kind of event start, and who your most recent episode was about Wicca, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you gave a little bit of a history on that, and I thought that was really interesting. How long does it take you to prepare for an episode?
I should probably spend more time. It's usually like an evening of
really?
Research. Yeah.
It seems well prepared.
It's usually like the night before. I'll be like, okay, start researching, message some friends. What should I do it on? And then I'll just research. I have a list of stuff I want to get to as well. But then I'll start researching. And then so it usually goes from the evening, and then we usually record in the afternoon. So I spend the morning polishing things up and stuff. So it's like... I'm a procrastinator, so that's really the only way I know how to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think it's really funny. I think it's kind of got a good mix of you're learning some things on it. You guys bring up a lot of things that I experienced growing up in a very charismatic church. A couple of things, and you kind of taught me some of the history of where the heck some of this stuff got started. I was talking to you earlier, we're both Canadian. and you have an episode where you talk about the Toronto blessing.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you don't know what it is, like go look at Trevor's podcast and go listen to like the background on it. That was something that was going on. It was like in the late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, so it's still technically going, but it was really popular in like 93, I think is when it started.
Okay.
And then kind of continued on from there. But it was 96 was probably its peak, where it was like, yeah.
And this is like, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, like this is like a thing that was happening at a church in Toronto where people were they were claiming that they have gold dust showing up on their hands. Is that right?
Yeah. So gold dust would like fall from the ceilings and show up on their hands, and they would claim that their teeth, the fillings in their teeth, had turned to gold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like in my home church, people were praying for the gold dusting on their hands, and I feel like that kind of like works nicely into our topic about like Halloween and magic. And I had put it on my Twitter earlier today. Like I posed the question, like I would love for anybody to come on here and explain what the difference is between like prayers and spells, or prayer, or like what's the difference between a miracle and magic. I know that there was a lot of things that I saw as I was kind of deconstructing that is spoken about like in like the religious communities, that like it's okay if you do this type of thing in this environment, because then you're doing it like, you know, it's for Jesus, or it's for whatever. But the very same thing done in a different circumstances, like witchcraft.
Yeah, exactly. And like, well, we're talking about how when I moved into my house as a kid, my parents thought that there was demons in the house. So they had like, we went through and blessed everything and like anointed it with oil and stuff. And like, what's the difference between that and like burning sage, you know, like, yeah.
Like I actually think that there's like a lot of connection here between like what most evangelicals will do and what modern people who are modern witchcraft is about. And actually I was surprised to find, I did a little bit of like not very deep research, but I did look up a little bit, and I found out that there's this whole community of people who they identify as Christian witches. And for me, I was like, that sounded like a major contradiction, but I was listening to their stories, and like it's so similar that they were able to kind of synchronize those two things, and they actually flow together pretty well. So that was kind of surprising for me.
That makes sense. And even like the spiritualism movement in like the late 1800s and stuff, they would tie that into their Christianity and stuff, and
right,
there was a lot of crossover there. So
again, like so what's the difference between somebody who's doing kind of mediumship work or like psychic work, or I think they would call it at church like a prophecy, or I'm thinking of the word. It's like a word of knowledge, I think they would say.
Yeah.
Is that's right?
That's right.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like they're both kind of relying on things like cold reading or hot reading. Like there's so many similarities. So like if we have any theists watching right now, like I would really love you to call in and tell me what the difference is. Like what is the difference when you are praying and maybe asking whatever God you believe in, if you are asking for something and because you desire an outcome, and you're asking for, you know, the power of this being that you think is all powerful to do something, how is that different than like casting a spell? I know I'm probably ignorant on it, and I'm not trying to bash on witchcraft. I actually think that witchcraft and like that stuff is like super cool, and I wish I was less afraid of it growing up, because it's pretty cool. I don't believe in it, but I do see like the aesthetic appeal to it. Obviously, I'm kind of like rocking the vibe right now.
Well, and that's the thing too, like with the Wiccan episode that we did last week, a lot more hate for that episode than I expected. And I think some of it comes down to like, usually we call out abuse and stuff in the church, or usually we'll call out like dangerous things. And it's the Halloween season, so I wanted to do a spooky episode. So it wasn't something that I see as dangerous as some of the belief systems out there. And I think that's kind of where that came from. But it has some like, silly background too. So
I think I've noticed there is a chunk of people who leave their kind of like fundamentalist faith, and they find a lot more like fulfillment in a different form like spirituality, if they would call it. And a lot of people they're like drawn into like the witchcraft because it's I think maybe part of it is that like it's taught to us as being like something so scary. So like just the interest, like just being told you can't look into something because it's scary will make you like want to check into it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, there's a lot of cool things about it that are just kind of aesthetic, and some people genuinely believe in all like the metaphysics of what's going on with that. And it is interesting. This kind of like this overlap. There are people who've left fundamentalism and found a different path. And if you're listening and you're like that, like please call in and tell us like how you got there. I'm really curious about that. I think I've at times kind of like wished I'd maybe taken like a little pit stop there on my way all the way out to like becoming an atheist, because it just seems so cool. But I couldn't ultimately like convince myself that there was anything going on with like the idea of like doing magic or controlling something. The comparisons to kind of like the new age or like new thought movement that influenced like faith healing. Like it's just, there's so much there. I was like, I can't be a part of any of it. So I kind of admire it, and I would love somebody to call and explain it, like on what convinced you, what convinced you to seek down that path. Because it's really interesting for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. And like, that's the thing too. When I started deconstructing and walk away from my faith, I tried to look into other belief systems, but it's like, when it's already been debunked in one area, it's like, it's hard to believe it. And like, just with a different name on it. So it just, to me, it was like, I can't just transfer it over.
And like you do, once you figure out like I grew up in like a Pentecostal church that did lots of faith healing. And once I deconstructed that, I couldn't take like these kind of like the new age ideas and like the power of manifestation. I'm like, that's just faith healing repackaged, or maybe faith healing was that repackaged. I don't know. It's too similar.
Like what's the difference between the secret and prosperity gospel?
Yeah,
I guess the
exactly.
secret's cheaper, but
you can just read the book. You don't have to like be guilted into giving every week. But...
exactly.
There's a lot of crossover. And I think that that's something that maybe I hadn't even thought about, like when I was a Christian, like how much of the stuff that we were doing would be considered kind of low-key witchcraft, because you're putting your ideas out and you're kind of hoping to manifest something by I don't know. Like the last thing I did at a women's Bible study was help participate in making like this vision board. And it's kind of not that different from like creating, like I don't know what the word is because I'm obviously not into it, but like doing some sort of manifestation work where you're like hoping to bring things forward, and by writing these things down on a piece of paper, like that's not that different than what I see and what I hear about people doing for writing spells. They like write things down and they put them in little bottles, and like there's a whole ritual to it. How is it different? It really wasn't.
Did you ever do the thing where you write your sins down and then throw it into like the bonfire at camp?
Yes.
Or like like how is that different?
Every single summer we like had a bonfire. And I did a lot of camp counseling, so I'd be there like consecutive weeks, and so like it was something that happened quite frequently. We also like we did burn Harry Potter books at camp. Like that's not even like, I'm not even joking. We actually did do that. Everybody who had brought a Harry Potter book was told to go get it, and they put it in the bonfire, which I'm sure like the people who were just visiting for the first time, their parents were thrilled.
Can you imagine? Like, the kid really excited. You spend like $30 on the book or whatever it is. They go off to camp to read it, and I burned it. Oh, cool.
They told me to burn it. They said that it might bring witches or demons into our house. The
only thing I ever had to destroy like that was, I've talked about it so many times on the podcast because it made me so angry, but my youth pastor convinced me to break my In the Key of Springfield CD, like the Springfield soundtrack, because he said that The Simpsons was the breakdown of the family. Luckily, though, a listener, after I said that, did send me a copy of it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have it again. But
did you manifest that?
I manifested. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, I threw out a few CDs in the 90s during I think I threw out like an Alanis Morissette CD. I think that was like, she was way too like way too progressive. She did that video where she was like naked and all that.
That's true. Yeah, thank you.
I'm aging myself right now.
No, I'm right there with you. Like, I listened to Ironic today.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. Fun fact, she came into my restaurant once and somebody put that album on, which I thought was so rude. like that's, yeah. Anyways, that's a different topic.
Everybody, anytime I put it on, my husband just says, she has a whole generation not understanding what the word ironic actually means.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh man. Yeah, we could go on about all the crazy kind of things that, like all the superstitions, I guess, that we kind of grew up with, right?
I think somebody mentioned hedge of protection in the Twitter today too, and of course that's like so similar to so much like witchcraft stuff, and yeah,
it's not much different than having like a good luck charm when you feel like you have to like say these words in this sequence before you do this event, or you aren't protected. Like even just the whole idea of that is very superstitious.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. We do have some calls coming in here. Are you ready to take some calls pretty soon?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm down for that. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, first we're gonna just take a minute to thank our patron of the week. So every week here, we like to do a special shout out for one of our Patreon patrons. The Patreon is really one of the things that makes the show happen. So this week we're gonna shout out to our patron, who is Marcy Mariano. So thank you, Marcy, for donating. And if you want to get involved and help us put the show on, you can become a Patreon let me look at that up. Patreon.com/truthwanted. Check that out over there. And actually, before we jump into calls, we're going to do one more thing here. Just a warning for anybody watching. If you have a weak stomach or if you're a little nervous, you may want to turn away for this next little promo here, because we at the ACA are putting on a new production on Sunday, and it's a first of its kind for the ACA. We're doing an extra special Halloween event here. Actually, I'm in Canada, but it's being filmed live at the Driscoll Hotel, which is one of the most haunted hotels in Austin. So we have a little clip here we're going to show you.
Hi everybody, Objectively Dan here from the ACA's very own Truth Wanted, and I am here at the Driscoll Hotel, Texas's supposedly most haunted hotel. And we are going to be doing a very special live event on October 31st, Halloween night, where we are going to be live streaming in the hotel's allegedly most haunted room.
I'm scared.
Yeah. To go change my pants.
So that's happening this Sunday, right after the Atheist Experience. You can just kind of hang out and go right into that special. It's going to be, Dan is going to be actually at the Driscoll Hotel. Puck and I will both be there too. Hopefully nothing too scary happens. I'm a little freaked out because I film in this room down here. It's part of my garage, and so I'm hoping that nobody tries to jump out behind me while we're doing that, because although I don't believe in ghosts, I am quite a jumpy person. So we'll see how that goes.
Amazing.
We've got a few calls here now. Let me see, since we're talking about magic, I think we should continue that conversation. So I'm going to bring Liam in here from Louisiana. Liam is a skeptic, but he's curious how much of magic could be explained by having premonition.
Yes, guys, thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Liam.
Hello.
Hi, yeah. It took me an embarrassingly long time to come around to skepticism. I'm an ex-evangelical, but since then I've gotten a fairly decent science background, and even your top-end physicist, even Einstein, would talk about how our perception of the passage of time was probably just a quirk, probably just an illusion, and physicists can't really explain why we perceive a linear passage of time, okay? And since my deconversion, I still have little things that jump to conclusions or have intuitions, and then something will immediately happen. Few and far between. I don't try to ascribe any meaning of life to it, but it's things that I probably would have, back during my religious days, thought was a sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, do people have these things on a regular basis, or are they aware of that? And how much of that would explain, I did this by magic, or I did this by prayer? Maybe you were subliminally aware of, this good thing's going to happen, or this bad thing's going to happen, and then use the whole prayer or witchcraft as sort of a meditation to bring it into your consciousness. I'm curious what people think about that.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of describing, to me, the first thing I thought about is like when you have you see 11:11 on the clock all the time. It's kind of one of those things where like once you're become aware of it, you notice it quite a bit.
For me, yes, and even though I'm not into astrology or anything, the time of day I was born was 5:42, and every time I go out on a road trip, as skeptical as I am, I always see a license plate with that number. It happens so often, I started taking pictures of them to show other people to make sure it really happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of like the when you're counting the hits and discounting the misses too. So like, this is a terrible example, but I'm just gonna go for it anyway. Like I know, so I have 2 kids, and when I was thinking about getting pregnant with my second, I felt like everywhere I looked, all I saw were pregnant people, because that was what was on my mind, and that's what I focused on. And what I wasn't seeing were all the people that weren't pregnant that I was walking by. And so I think that it's one of those things, like you can kind of tune your mind into something, and when you're focusing on it, like it's really easy to start to see a pattern there and kind of like want to draw some sort of a conclusion from it other than what it is. Like coincidences do happen. And I think the idea that there's something bigger behind it, that would have to kind of override the chances of things being a coincidence. And a lot to do with like the human psychology.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not an expert in anything except for obscure types of chemistry, but I've had Statistics 101 and Psych 101, and I was always a fan of Carl Jung, and he would talk about synchronicity, this meaningful coincidences. And it's just been a lifelong fascination with me to where, and I don't want to debate, well, I've seen X number of this, and I only looked at X number of that, and so it had to be extraordinary. But I'm fascinated by the feeling sometimes you get, an eerie, creepy, your hair stands up, wow. Not just, oh, look, it's a coincidence, but that feeling is what I focus on. And I think it'd be interesting to hear people talk honestly about how often they have that feeling, and then, like you say, try to ascribe some sense of, oh, well, that was a sign, or that was a blessing, or my spell worked, or whatever. I focus on that feeling rather than just the numbers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for me, it's like I used to always think that I hated Thursdays. Like there was something about the day Thursday that I'm like, I don't want to go to work. If I can have that as my day off in the week, then I'll do it, because there's just something about it I hate. And then eventually, you start to realize that, it's it's the same. You're taking the hits and ignoring the misses. If you have a really bad day and then you realize, it's Thursday, it was kind of like you justify it. But like, I mean, I get what you're saying, because it's when you have, especially like, after my step grandfather died, they had issues with the power in his house that same day. So it's like, of course you're going to describe that, and everybody's like, oh, that's creepy. But they're two separate things that may have have just happened to happen on the same day, but it's still like, when you in that moment, it's like, this is really spooky. But
yeah, and like, as humans, I was just gonna say that as humans, we're pattern seekers as well too. So like, it's really normal and natural for especially like when we've been told things our whole lives. It's really easy for us to jump to that thing, like the causation and correlation, that like this thing happened right after this other thing, and like, what does that mean? Like, I think that's really normal for humans to do. I think that the one other thing that you had mentioned was like the experience of synchronicity. I know what you're talking about, I think, because I think for me, I would describe that as like when you have that sense of awe, like how could these things line up like that? Like that's so crazy, and it's so easy to want to like count or like attribute it to something else besides just a happy coincidence. And if we were looking at all the things that didn't line up, you don't really notice the things that didn't line up because they're not that noticeable. And to take those moments and to just appreciate the fact that as a human, we can have that experience of awe and wonder without having to attribute it to anything. I think it's
not easy though.
No, it's not easy.
And I like what you said, that we are pattern recognition machines. And, if our brains have gotten us any kind of evolutionary advantage, it's that we can't stop from trying to guess explanations for stuff. And sometimes it works.
Exactly.
And that's satisfying on a hormonal dopamine or something level. And so that's the thing that people don't get about science, is that anybody who's got any kind of a degree in anything knows that they're fantastically ignorant about every other discipline of science. Whereas religious people tend to point at us and say, oh, you think you understand everything. No, I know how horrifically ignorant I am, and that's okay. That's why I do science. So, but anyway, let me let y'all go. I really appreciate your time, but let me leave you with one more example that's not mine. There's a Arthur C. Clarke book, Childhood's End, which, major spoiler alert, I don't know if you guys have read that, but at the end of it, they've been talking to aliens this whole time. And at the end of it, the aliens finally revealed themselves, and they look just like the devil. And the punchline in that is that humans have this sort of reverse ancestral memory where, through all of history, people have been having premonitions that the world was going to end because of these devil-looking things. So that punchline has always stuck with me. And as it is, it's something I can't entirely write off. And I'd love to hear more people talk about, the experience of what feeling they had, and then this thing happened, and like, well, maybe you just knew it subconsciously.
That's interesting.
I would let you guys go.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks.
It's a good topic, and I think it's really interesting to think about like what is happening there when our mind notices, like I hear the word synchronicity all the time, a phrase that gets tossed around a lot in my kind of circle is like, well, that's how the universe works. Like they want to attribute it to something that's like a mind that's controlling it, even if it's not like they're not even necessarily referencing any kind of theistic thing, but there must be something at work because the way that these things are lining up or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that like, I think it's not a bad thing to like kind of zone in on those things, to like enjoy how quirky and like odd it is that things line up like that, but being fully aware of like out of the whole day, one thing happened like that, and the rest of the day, everything else just kind of went off on its own, and nothing really lined up in a weird way.
Yeah.
It is a good example of like that, counting the hits and ignoring the misses. And I know for myself, I do see 11:11 on the clock a lot, and it's really hard to not sometimes think like, did I have a premonition that it was coming up on 11:11?
Yeah,
or 5:55?
exactly.
That's another one that I get a lot.
Yeah, but it's not like you've never looked at a clock when it wasn't those numbers.
Yes, I probably looked at the clock.
Yeah.
I probably looked at the clock already like 10 times over the last like hour, especially if I'm waiting for something. And yeah, one of those times happened to fall on a number that feels magical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was, I used to live in Alberta, and I was visiting some friends, and I was visiting, like I went back to Alberta to visit some friends, and I ran into somebody I knew. And for them, they had just been thinking about me that morning and had no idea I was in the same province as them. And plus we were in a small town that we didn't know each other in. So it like to them, that blew their mind. Like, and it was like evidence that God had put me in their path. And it was, but to me, it's like, but
it's so easy. Like I can think back to how easy it was to attribute everything to like that, right? Like that this is all meant to be, and like, I honestly don't know, like what, like if we're thinking about what all of the other things are that you have been already exposed to in the day. So like this happens for my husband every now and then, actually quite frequently. He'll think of somebody and then he'll get a call from them like the same day. And I swear I've always been like, well, like what had you gone on social media and had you scrolled down and had you seen somebody, like there's got to be something that like maybe was just very subconscious on your level that made you think about that person, and they posted something, and that something is also something that you know about. And then that, like, I don't know. I think it makes more sense if you just say like, what is the or what are the likelihood that I just kind of saw that person on social media recently and their face stuck with me. So when they called me later that day, it felt very, very suspicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's not too complicated, but it does make you feel weird. I'll admit that it does make you feel weird.
Oh yeah. Like when you pick up the phone to call somebody and they're calling you.
Yes.
It's like, what? The Lord needs us to get together. But
and how easy was it to attribute that to?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the Holy Spirit or whatever.
Exactly.
So I want to keep the woo conversation going here. I'd like to talk to Queer Atheist. Him in Illinois. He wants to talk about woo in the workplace and feeling pigeonholed into participation. So still talking about woo.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's Friday, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I just wanted to hit up on the burning the sins at church camp. That just came up in conversation. I used to be a church camp counselor in my previous theist days, and there wasn't enough paper at the church camp for me to write masturbation and burn it on. So I ran out. I didn't know what else to write. That was pretty much it. What I was actually calling.
I'm sorry.
I know. What I don't feel bad about it anymore. What I was calling about was, there's a tendency in the queer community, and I to subscribe to woo, things like, astrology, I see a lot, and just other kinds of like Reiki and things like that. And I have a hypothesis that it's due to a lack of organized religion being open to that. So they need like an outlet for spirituality or something, along those lines. Yeah. But I'm a skeptic. I work at a nonprofit for queer youth, and I'm trying to be a little circumspect here because I don't want this to get back to anybody. But we had a meeting a few years ago where they had, I don't know what you call them, like chakra cleanser, come in before the meeting to cleanse our chakras or something. And I've been a skeptic for a very long time, and had to sit there while this woman cleansed my chakra. And I don't even know I'm sitting there going, what the fuck is a chakra? And why do you think my chakra needs to be cleansed? And she was describing the various parts of the body and the colors that go with them. And I looked to my best friend who also works there. And I said, I guarantee you the genitals are going to be red. They're going to be red. And she said, now, if we move past your abdomen, we get to your genital region, and that's red. And I was like, God, I started laughing. I started laughing hysterically, and I got a lot of pushback from that. Like, why are you laughing at this woman? I said, well, it's patently like hilarious. I mean, I can't help it. It's so out there.
And
I don't mean to put anyone's beliefs down, but it was just, it was ridiculous. So I felt like I was put in a very awkward spot, and I wondered if you had any thoughts on that. There's a lot of woo out there, and I don't feel comfortable participating.
I think you made a really interesting point at the beginning where you mentioned that because you're in a community that is largely unaccepted by organized religion, but there still seems to be a kind of this general need to be spiritual or to be expressing yourself on that spiritual, or I would maybe call that more psychological or emotional level.
Right.
It's really quite easy to like turn to those kind of things because they still give you some sort of sense of explanation or control. It's like some of the same benefits that that religion gives people, but it's on a different scale, So I think that I may be different than others, but like I think that unless somebody is like making some sort of decision where they're like making poor choices, or maybe putting themselves in harm's way because they're making life decisions based on their astrology or something like that. Like I think that there is a good portion of it that's pretty harmless, but obviously there's a line there, and so allowing people to kind of like freely like express it or like try it without maybe like encouraging them that it's like going to be something that's going to be worthwhile, but you can kind of like tell them like, oh, that's neat, that's kind of cool. I'm not really big into that. I don't really believe that, but like, why do you think it's like a big deal? Maybe even using like kind of a gentle street epistemology kind of thing. If you're concerned that they're using it in like kind of an unhelpful way, or like as a crutch or some other thing that they would hold them back in some sort of way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love street epistemology. It's not the community aspect of it that bothers me, although I've been turned down on dates before because my sign is wrong. Which I don't know how that works. I don't know. It's more of the workplace thing that had bothered me, because I'm being paid by this nonprofit, and I know you're both Canadian, so I don't know what the story is with Canada taking over. I'm open to it. I can't get any worse than what America. But
so is your concern the fact that they're essentially bringing in like kind of a religious practice into this environment?
Correct. Yeah.
And kind of maybe unintentionally pushing it on people who aren't interested or think it's maybe harmful?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know. It's a fine line, because I remember when I was first considered myself a skeptic, and I had a coworker who was talking about astrology and things like that, and I started like trying to debunk it and tell them like why, it's based on an old system, and now those signs aren't even where they are, and they got really upset with me, and I had to take a step back and realize that like, oh, that's their belief system that I'm just like casually at work like shitting all over. But then on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying, where it's like, this is a place of work. If somebody was constantly preaching to me about Jesus, I would be upset. So it's like, can we draw some lines? And for me, it was always like with that kind of stuff where I'd be like, that's not my jam, but you do you. And then I'd kind of move on from that after, getting past that angry stage.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
Yeah, maybe think about maybe having a conversation with whoever you need to have the conversation with, that as harmless as these things can come across, they still kind of do fit in with like a religious framework. So you could possibly be making other people feel uncomfortable. If you're in a community where it's supposed to be kind of a neutral space for people to come from all walks of life. As I think sometimes like those things, because they're kind of popular in like Hollywood and those kind of things, like they talk about them like they're pretty harmless, maybe even like a little silly, or something that could be good for community building. But they are still part of like a spiritual or even religious framework. Like a lot of these things have roots in some sort of a religion. So maybe a conversation about some sort of boundaries would be appropriate for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I just thought I'd get another take on it. But
I would be annoyed if that's what you're asking. I'd be annoyed if somebody tried to come clear my chakras.
I
think
was
it's safe to be annoyed
and amused at the same time. It was like, it was so ridiculous, and I thought I could be spending my time masturbating. I don't know. I mean, I could be entirely, and not have to waste 20 minutes of my time getting something imaginary cleaned.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to clean something, clean my carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're just sitting there uncomfortably while it happens too. It's like, I've had it too, where people like start praying for me when I didn't ask for it. And you're just like, you're standing there like, what do I do?
This is more for you than it is for me. But I'm just going to sit here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, like, those are just
so
a few ideas. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I hope that works out for you. I think if you do have a conversation with anybody and you feel like okay calling us back, I would actually like love to know what happens if you do talk to somebody, to see like how they took it, or if that conversation does come up, like was it a big deal? Was it something that they are like, oh yeah, no, that's fine, like we won't do those kind of things, because it is kind of religious-y to have in like a workplace or professional environment. I would love to hear back from you if you're open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love you guys.
Okay,
so, thank you
again. Thanks for calling in.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. I almost wanted to say happy Halloween. I don't know. Speaking of astrology, I do have a confession to make. On my way out of Christianity, I did take a little pit stop in the kind of the New Agey movement.
Yeah.
And I have a tattoo on my finger of my sign.
Nice.
And it's just funny. Like I have it, and I think it's right on my middle finger too, because I don't know if anybody can. Some people will tell me, I can tell that you are a Scorpio based on your personality. Other people are surprised by it, but I keep it there. I could get it removed, but I keep it there as a reminder to not just fall so easily for things.
Yeah.
For
Do you have
me,
any? Oh, sorry.
For me, I read the astrology stuff, and I was like, this is it. This gave me all the answers I need about my personality and how to have good relationships. And and then I started to realize I could pick up a lot of things from different astrological signs, and they are all going to have something that I relate to.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And I don't believe in it anymore. I think there are a few things that I'm like, yeah, it's kind of weird. All Scorpios do maybe act this way, or all Leos maybe have something. But I think that you might as well just be describing human nature at that point. So
yeah.
I don't know. What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, a lot of us have our Christian tattoos still. I was lucky I didn't get any of those, but I started tattooing myself after I left the faith. But
so, my main tattoo that I got was right after I deconstructed too. And apparently that's like a thing. A lot of people do it, especially if you were grew up in a religion or a denomination that was like kind of anti-tattoo. I would say my I didn't even grow up like in that kind of a denomination, but I still felt like I wanted to go out and like commemorate the moment that I like was in charge of my own life, if that makes sense.
My sibling actually got a Christian tattoo when they were still a believer, and but they went for like the cheapest place they could find, and which isn't what you want to do when you get a tattoo, but instead of giving them like ointments and stuff, they just gave them like a Wiccan spell to like, make it heal faster. So. And
how did that work? Did they?
I mean, eventually it healed.
Yeah. See, there you go. Like eventually it will heal, and then that practitioner is going to say it's because of the spell I did. But maybe that just the natural process of washing it off after having a shower and putting lotion on it, it was actually going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I'm loving how these conversations are all kind of keeping in the theme of our Halloweeny kind of special. And we've got another one too. And this one is really interesting to me because this is something that I have actually had this treatment before. How much do you know about Reiki?
Very little. I have a
Very
friend
little?
that's a licensed practitioner of it. They've offered to give me free sessions, and I've declined.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to bring Kennita on because Kennita has a cousin who's a Reiki practitioner. Okay. So Kennita, I'd love to hear about your cousin. Hi.
Hello.
Right. I mean, my cousin, she's a Christian, but she still does this thing that seems to me to be very woo. And I went in, you know, she said, "Oh, I'll do a treatment for you." And it looked to me like it was just massage. And I thought, well, sure, I can stand a massage. But she starts putting these crystals around me. And, you know, apparently, like, I have my eyes closed, but apparently, you know, it's like, well, this is, you know, a peridot, and these are different kinds of, you know, and putting a sandstone by your left foot or something. It's very strange, you know. It's like, okay, I didn't notice anything about any of these stones, but it was nice having a, you know, a massage and to have sort of a meditative thing where I can, you know, take some time out and listen to some quiet music and things like that. So I thought, you know, she actually thinks that this is working. So I didn't know whether it was even okay for, you know, to be playing her this way, right? Because I'm getting, so
synchronicity.
Yeah.
She's calling you right now.
No, but so anyway, I guess just is it really all right for me to just go along with it as opposed to calling her out and saying, you know, you actually are, you know, you're doing something that doesn't really make any sense. But I just wanted to, you know, see what your take is on that. Does it even? I don't know. Because I'm being duplicitous in a sense, right?
I think I know what you're asking. Like that you've gone in and you've had her give these treatments to you. You didn't hate it. It was actually maybe a little bit enjoyable. But by getting the treatments, maybe you're worried that you're going to be confirming to her that what she's doing is something that's like a very valid type of treatment for something. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah. So I do have a few kind of thoughts about Reiki in particular. So Reiki is a type of like energy. It's called energy work. So it is a form of touch therapy. And some Reiki therapists will use like crystals and other things. So some Reiki therapists will do some sort of massage. Some of them actually won't even touch you. They'll place their hand in certain parts in your body, like as a pressure point thing. It depends on the practitioner. So I've had a Reiki treatment, and for me, I do see it as something that still can be something beneficial for somebody who is needing some sort of touch therapy. Because I used to work in the spa industry, and I know that there is a lot of benefit to having personal attention and touching, like just having somebody giving you that time of day where you're the focus of it. And whether they're putting a crystal on your back or just putting their hand on your forehead, the experience can be quite relaxing. I think it does vary from something like maybe chiropractic or acupuncture, in the fact that I think it is on the end of harmless on the spectrum. So I think that it is something, I don't think you should feel bad about going and getting it, because I think that it can be something that's really relaxing. And if it's your cousin, it might make her feel kind of special that you're coming in to get this treatment. I think that I wouldn't go in there to get treatment for some sort of ailment that you should actually go see a doctor about. And I don't think that there should be any kind of crossover where you're using her practice as something where you're referring it to people when they have a serious medical condition where they should actually be going and getting tested. But I do think there's value in touch therapy, even if it's not really doing anything scientifically. That's kind of where I'm at that.
But it seems like it could be, like you were talking about, you wouldn't recommend somebody go in for that if they had a real ailment. Mm-hmm. But if she feels like what the things that she's doing are helping with those kind of ailments, then she might be more likely to recommend that somebody do that instead of going to a doctor, and that could be a bad thing.
So that's when it becomes dangerous. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, is she advertising that she treats conditions that aren't, the basic things that you would get by going to the spa?
I actually haven't paid a whole lot of attention. She's in Cleveland, so
okay,
and I'm in California, so we don't see each other that much. I was just visiting Cleveland, and she said, "Oh, while you're out here, you should come and get a Reiki treatment." And it's like, sure. And, so now again, I know, again, yeah, like you said, it's relaxing, and it was, I don't know.
Like on the spectrum,
the oil smelled nice and so on.
Yeah, I see it as like on the spectrum of things that are kind of pseudoscientific. I see it on the very, very low end of harmful. If anything, I think the biggest risks that you're going to have going in there is that you're going to be maybe promised something like relief from something that you actually won't get relief from, whether it's just like, a backache or indigestion. I know that they do claim things that they can treat. I don't think that going in there with any kind of expectation of that. And so in that way, you could be wasting time, wasting money. If you were to go in there just with the idea of, I need some, maybe I have been really busy and I really haven't had a chance to sit down at all. And this is going to be an opportunity for me to lay down for a full, 45 minutes and smell some candles, and somebody's going to touch me in a very intentional way. I think that's fine. But I think there is something to be worried about in the fact of what they are promoting that they can do, because I know that there are Reiki practitioners out there that will have on their websites that they treat a variety of conditions that they shouldn't be putting that on there. Yeah. So it's a tricky one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and it's
Trevor,
always that. Oh no, that it's that line too of like with any of those like woo kind of things is if you're saying, okay, I'm going to go to a doctor and I'm going to get this treated, but also on the side I'm going to see if this does anything. But you're still going to the doctor and you're still getting that treatment, then it's cool. But like if you're that's when it gets dangerous, is when you're replacing it. I think that's all I really had to add to that.
Well, and I have friends who practice a Wicca, and they also will say, come in and I'll do this reading for you, or do this treatment or these herbs or whatever, and cure something that's wrong with you. And it's like the Reiki, only different. It's, instead of it being a massage, they'll have a ritual that they'll do. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's also, great. It's nice to sit and meditate and be quiet and maybe even to, concentrate on, I don't know, different, look at your air element will cause your mind to be clear or whatever, things like that. And, well, okay, it's maybe nice, again, to think about, but as long as you don't, but they actually believe that it's making a difference, and I'm not yeah.
Well, you can't kind of push anybody into doubting kind of where their positions are unless they're at a place where they are curious about it themselves. So I mean, if it comes up and you're in a conversation, like there are sometimes opportunities to like kind of ask them like, so what do you think is actually going on with this? Using some kind of street epistemology type questions, but there's not always an opportunity for that, especially if it's a family member that you don't see that often. And there's a good chunk of people out there that are just not that interested in and not that curious about whether they are whether they have the truth on something. So it's as much as we want everybody to care about the truth, you can't force people to care about whether their beliefs are true.
True. Well, yeah, the Wiccans are actually out here in California. And I guess I haven't actually tried street epistemology on that. Like sort of the how sure are you that this is true, and asking questions and then seeing if they're a little less sure it's true. But and yeah, I haven't really done a lot of the street epistemology. I could probably stand more practice.
It's always good to like kind of know where, if the opportunity arises, what you would say to people in your life that maybe are holding on to beliefs that you are curious whether they have thought about them that much. I definitely don't recommend calling up everybody and starting in with them. But it's good to like kind of have a few questions in your back pocket and have it come up organically and just ask them about it. But yeah, I think I will let you go, Kennita. I appreciate you calling in again. It's nice talking to you. And yeah, if you're going to get Reiki, just make sure that you're not getting it for anything super serious, because it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
But it might feel very relaxing. I had Reiki one time. Yeah. During that same time that I got the tattoo.
Okay.
And I had a young child. I have two kids, and my youngest was a year old, and I don't think I'd slept very much in a year. And so I decided to go get Reiki from this lady who was trained. She had been trained in Japan, like she was the real deal. I went in there and I laid down on her bed and I fell asleep right away. So my experience with Reiki, it was really nice. I had the deepest nap. I had the deepest nap I ever had in my life. I only remember her putting her hands on my forehead. And that was it. So I didn't get hurt. It wasn't dangerous. I maybe wasted a few bucks because I just had a good nap, but it worked for me.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got lots of interesting callers in tonight. I appreciate the people who are calling in and telling us their ideas.
Yeah.
Let me see here. We have a few callers that want to kind of get philosophical with us. How are you feeling about that?
Sure, let's give it a go. I mean, I'm not the sharpest crayon in the
me neither.
In the box, but we'll see what happens.
We'll give it our best Canadian go.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll talk to David. David from Washington. He wants to present a subjective argument for a higher power.
Okay.
Hi, David.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for waiting.
Good. I'm very interested in different colors tonight, and I think it's pretty interesting what you guys have going here. Sorry to get philosophical. I know you guys are more of like a spiritual kind of truth thing, but
we'll do our best.
I think Erin. Yeah. I think your name's Erin, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of mentioned on the colors before about like don't get into too much like there's boundaries and certain, practices you can maybe go too far with, and it could actually end up hurting you or stuff like that. So I was kind of wondering about like kind of morality, and I was wondering if you guys believe morality is subjective or objective, and why.
Do you want to go first, Trevor?
Well, I think it's I don't know. I've always struggled with defining, but like for me, it's like it basically, you don't want to hurt people, and I don't want to get hurt. So if we all agree that we're not going to hurt each other, then let's not do that. And that includes things like being kind and treating people with respect, and hugging someone when they need it, or things like that. It's just be good to people. That's my take on morality.
Yeah. I'm pretty right there with you, Trevor. I think I fall that I think that morality is more or less subjective. I don't think that there is, like, in my opinion, I'm like I said, I'm not super philosophical, but I don't see a lot of reasons for like the ought tos with the morality. I think that it's something like we have goals that we agree to as society. We have to kind of agree on goals in order to work towards those goals. So
Right,
so where are you taking this?
Yeah. So I'm kind of taking it in the realm of I mean, for what I believe in a higher power, and I believe that we don't necessarily get our morality, because obviously atheists and Christians, you see a lot of that of they'll have equal morality, like they both believe in the same moral things. So atheists and agnostics, they definitely have morality, but I guess my main thing is how do you justify the morality that you have? Because one thing, because what you're saying is you have it and you strive for to be better, to be kind, to help people, to strive for better goals so that we can keep on just being better as a society. And my main point is, but like Hitler, Stalin, people that we would deem horrible in history, like Stalin killing 20 million of his own people, and then he kind of died a nice death on his bed, and he never had to be punished for his crimes. So how would you justify it then? If like, where do you get that inherentness of justification if somebody has a different idea of morality? And do you believe that higher power?
You're not asking us to justify Hitler, right?
Yeah,
you're just asking. You're just
unpopular
asking.
opinion. Don't like Hitler.
Like, I don't think you're gonna get it. I know I'm wearing horns and I'm pretty kind of demonic today, but I'm not gonna try to justify anything that Hitler did. How would I justify my behavior? I mean, I think that, as social creatures, I think that we possess things like mirror neurons. It actually does hurt me. I feel pain when I see other people in pain. When I think about other people who I may be hurting with my actions, I don't know if it's something that's like I wouldn't want them to do that to me, but like, I also think about that person may have a different perspective from me, but they've made me aware of it, so I'm not going to do that thing because they have told me that it hurts them, and when they are hurt, it causes me pain because of the way that our brains work, and it does something to me on a physical level, and I feel really, really. I feel pain when I see other people in pain, so I don't want to cause that to them. I don't know if where that cycle ends, but
so we can both agree, Erin, that you absolutely believe that Hitler was 1,000% wrong, and do you believe that Hitler should have died a horrible death?
Do I believe he should have died a horrible death? I mean, ideally, yeah.
Yeah, after
you want punishment, but can I ask you a question?
That's what I mean. Sure.
Can I ask, so you say you believe in a higher power. Is it a specific higher power? Like, are you a part of a religion, or do you just believe that, something's bigger than me out there? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I would put it in Christian section.
Okay. So when God said slavery was okay, would you say that was wrong?
Yeah. So in Exodus 21, I don't want to get, we can talk about that, but I don't want to get too deep into Exodus 21 right now. But again,
I just think
how
because
why-
just because you brought up an example of somebody doing a bad thing, I just thought, why don't we bring up an example of a god doing a bad thing, like killing everybody except for 8 people?
But in your absolutely, and I totally get that question. But in your realm, how do you justify that then? Because if you can't justify it, then it's just human opinion, is it not? Like it's like
how do we justify that your god killed people, or what are you asking us to justify? Because we haven't killed we haven't committed genocide,
right?
Either of us.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying. Say me and Trevor, last 2 people on Earth, right? Or say there's last 2 people on Earth, right? You believe that slavery is okay, and I believe that slavery is right. How do we know who's right and who's wrong?
I think you are. Did you say that we believe slavery is okay, and you believe that it's wrong?
No. Vice versa. It doesn't matter who and who. It just say I believe that.
Well, we would just have to agree if it was just maybe you and I left on the planet Earth, and we have different opinions about slavery. I guess we'd have to like one of us would have to agree to it, and the other person won't agree, and you can't force one other person to do it.
Yeah, and if you're enslaving one of those, if the person who's like pro-slavery is the one enslaving the other person, so like there's 2 people, one of them is a slave. Yeah, that slave guy person is not gonna like being a slave, and that's gonna hurt them, and they're gonna be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Right. But but why should we care what they like? What's bad about not caring? I still don't understand the justification of what you guys get. It just sounds like just. Well,
it goes against this common goal that we've decided as society, that we're going to treat each other in a certain way.
Hold on. You said common goal. 1800s slavery was right? That black people were slaves, right? And slaves obviously were white.
No, it wasn't right.
A lot of people said it was wrong at the time too. There were abolitionists.
No. But I know those people thought it was right. Just like Hitler thought killing the Jews were right. Just like Stalin thought killing his own people were right. I mean, you can name atrocities on atrocities. But my main point is I believe from an atheist or an agnostic point of view, you have morality. That's not the discussion. It's just you cannot justify it. And if you say, "Oh,
no, we can justify." We gave you our justification. Is that we justify it by the fact that we have this. We create goals with people in our lives and in our community, and then we work towards those goals. And my justification is that I've made that commitment, and I want to live in society, and I don't want to hurt people. It's not that complicated. I would like to know how you are basing your morality. How do you decide whether you should enslave somebody or not?
Right. Just real quick on that comment. You're just saying just in your boundaries of where you live. So in the United States, wherever you are in the United States, just that boundary.
We're in Canada.
If you go to the Middle East.
Yeah, we're Canadian.
Or Canada, right? So yeah, if you say Canada versus you say the cartel in Mexico, or you could say slave trades in the Middle East, or say super extreme Islam, ISIS, for an example. Those would be their boundaries to help their community grow in power, wealth, and thrive just over and above. But it's not the same to everybody, because it's not a universal.
No, which is why we have a lot more work to do in the world. Yeah. There's a lot more work to do because we need to. As people who believe that our main goal here. I'm just going to mute you for a second here. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to make a point that societally we have different moralities all throughout the world. And I mean, in my mind, that doesn't mean that morality is objective. And there's just certain people who are like missing the point. I think that like morality is something that evolves over time. And I think that like our society has agreed that like human well-being and flourishing is a good thing. Human individual well-being is not something that's been agreed upon in certain communities. And I think that's why there is activism, and why we have these programs, and why we're trying to get free internet access to certain communities and increase their independence. Like it's clearly is a problem, and that we're working towards, because morality is something that does improve and progress and evolve.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the hello.
You're on. Sorry, we were just a little bit of a lag here, so I just wanted to make sure we both got our words in.
Yeah. You're good. Just my main point is again, you bring up we have to work towards a certain goal, or we have to work to be better. Those are good moral words that you're putting into your sentences. But again, it's just what you're saying is it's human opinion, and there's a lot of humans around me in this community of where I live, and we all came up on the same opinion. So that opinion is right, no matter what anybody says.
No.
That's what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Yes, there's lots of humans, and lots of humans disagree, and that's part of what the discourse is about, and that's how we grow and evolve in our morality. We talk about it, and we discuss, and we learn things on a sociological level about what kind of things are harmful to people, and things that we didn't think that were harmful 20 or 40 or 50 years ago. We learned that actually that was really harmful. So now we've learned, and we're going to use that knowledge towards how we base our decisions going forward.
Yeah, but harmful is another moral word. Harmful, you're using harmful as a negative word. What if somebody thinks harmful is a good word? What if somebody thinks the whole human... but what if somebody thinks the
word harmful is a negative word? That's how I'm using it, yes.
Yeah, but why do you think it's a negative word if somebody thinks it's a positive word? If somebody's like, oh, actually, I think it's good to create harm.
If a person in society thinks that harm is now a positive word, that person has now gone against what we've agreed to on society about what the word harm means.
That's why we have the prison for the criminally insane.
Yeah,
that's why that exists in this society.
It's not necessarily the word. It's just how you attach it to a certain action.
Right. So
my main point is sure. But just real quick. I promise. My main point is just saying that if it's harmful, you're using a harmful as let's just use Hitler as an example. You're saying what he did was harmful.
I would prefer you not to. I would like you to choose something different than Hitler, because let's move it into the 21st century here, and give me a more current example.
Let's say
because Hitler's an easy out
in the Middle East, or ISIS. Let's just say ISIS or Middle East slave trade. Let's say ISIS. So ISIS, Islam. Everybody knows who ISIS is, but if they're so zealous and they kill people and steal and rape and do all this stuff, you believe that is wrong because it creates harm. They believe what they're doing is right because it gives them power. You're coming from your human opinion. They're coming from their human opinion. How do you know who's right?
No, they're coming from the theocratic opinion, just like you. If you think objective morality is true, so I view that as that you are how you justify your decision is based on God's subjective morality. And if you're talking about say what did you say it was again? Taliban. They're using Allah's subjective morality, and they're basing all of it out of their book that's also thousands of years old.
Yeah, and isn't there a story in the Bible about God telling the army to keep the virgin girls for themselves?
Yeah,
that's it's in your book, right? So that objective morality is pretty immoral by my standards.
But it also seems like God's morality has changed over the years.
Yeah.
But that's
over the book.
that's what you. But again, you're saying that is wrong because you believe that, and that's the only justification is. Oh, I think that creates harm, and I see that creates harm, but that's what I think that.
So you don't think that's wrong?
People.
So it's a. Oh, I've got okay. Yeah. So
no. Listen to me. I never said that. I'm just saying that you guys are coming from a point of view of you're looking in the Bible. You read Exodus 21 about the slave trade, and you say, "Oh, that's slavery." Which again, I think that you guys are misinterpreting that whole context, but we're not going to get into that.
Probably not. But yes, we are saying, that's wrong. It's my subjective opinion.
That's the only standard that you really live by is your human opinion. You don't have a higher power. So again,
and the society and the people that I live in and the social contracts that I've made and my desire to live in a community where I'm safe and free and I can trust my neighbors to do so.
Again, community, the popularity, it's kind of like that appeal to popularity. The more people there is, it must be right.
No, it's more of an appeal to democracy. I think it's not the fallacy that you're bringing up.
But to the core of that, it's all these people around me think it's wrong, and I truly believe that it's wrong, so it must be wrong. That's what you're saying, and I think that's just human opinion, and a lot of human opinion.
I really would like to hear. I would like to hear Trevor's been trying to make a point here for the last like 10 minutes about.
Sure, absolutely. Sorry about that.
And I know you're gonna say like something misinterpretation or whatever. But so Trevor, you brought up the example about keeping the women and children as war booty after like David, if your God told you that he would like you to take these people who have just had their whole family slaughtered and watched everybody die, and that he would like you to take them on as some sort of a slave. We won't go any further than that. Your God has told you to do this. What would you do? Would the correct thing to be to do that because your God said so, or do you think there's a different way of action?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're referring to Yahweh, obviously in the Bible, that's not his heart, and that's a misinterpretation.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm giving you a hypothetical that if your God came, maybe we'll make it more simple. If your God came to you today and asked you to hurt somebody, like it's Yahweh, it's your God of your Bible. He asked you to do something. Would you do it?
No, because that's not him. That's not his nature. So
in my hypothetical, this is what he's asking you to do.
If I absolutely knew it was God, 100%, I would say, God, why are you changing? No, because I would say, God, why are you changing your character? That makes no sense. But if I absolutely knew it was God,
but you're just interpreting its character based through your own interpretation.
Sure. Okay. But if I know it's the God of the universe that he created everything. Then yeah, it's the God of the universe. If I absolutely knew that he existed and he's speaking to me, why not? Why wouldn't anybody? That's the God of the universe, is it not?
Because,
but again, if you're just saying that, okay, go on.
No, because we're not saying, because we have our subjective morality. We have our this doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do this because this is going to cause pain to a person. Sure, you're the big guy upstairs who invented all this, but I still see the pain on their face, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. In fact, it kind of seems a little sadistic what you're asking me to do.
Yeah, but again, but again, that's the subjective part of what you. I mean, again, if I knew that it was absolutely God and he's talking to me that God created the whole universe with that God, then sure, why not? I mean, it's God. Wouldn't you value an omniscient creature over anybody else's human objective knowledge? Okay. I mean, isn't that a no-brainer, right?
I think what I want to get to the point about is why you think one is better than the other.
Well, it's again, it's not really what you guys think in the sense of one is better than the other, because you're thinking that it's like, okay, if a child gets raped, right? That's awful. That's a horrible crime. I'd say we all agree that that's horrible and wrong. It's not really better.
Why do you think it's bad?
Right and what's 100% wrong?
But David, if a child was raped, why do you think it's bad? Because we think it's bad because it would cause harm.
God has written. Yeah, God has written his law on our hearts. Human intervention through sin that has messed it up. And we have been confused, and we have thought that things are good when things are actually bad. But I believe that
but
humans have a inherent.
I know you're kind of almost working into a presuppositional argument here, but why do you think that a raping of a child would be bad? Other than
without God, without just my own.
No, but why do you think?
Are you asking me?
It has to be without God, because
I think that we can agree that we would probably both think it's bad for the same reasons, and that you tag on your objective.
But again, we almost probably agree on a lot of moral stuff, absolutely. Because
probably. I don't appeal to some sort of higher being.
Right. No, and I'm not saying you have to be moral or to have morality. It's just the justification part. You're justifying it through human opinion. I'm saying I justify it through a higher power, which is God, and that his knowledge is way beyond ours.
You need to prove your higher power. Okay, I'm justifying it through the power of the carpet. I don't know, justification. I get what you're saying, but it doesn't matter.
Whether you think chocolate
Yeah,
tastes
but-
good because you
Yeah.
like the taste of chocolate, or chocolate
be-
tastes good because the chocolate man is the creator of the universe.
And said
like,
you have to like chocolate because it's the best.
yeah, it's like I
Yeah,
like
I don't- I
chocolate
don't-
because
I
it
don't-
tastes good in my mouth.
Well, you see the damage that it's like with certain sins. You see the damage that it does to people, and you say, "Wow, God didn't."
No, I don't believe like what is
Christianity at
sin?
all. And
Yeah.
What is sin?
I made a video about it actually. It's
sin is
on YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
Like I see people doing things that are I see people doing things that are harmful, like that they do them to themselves and they do to other people, and it causes harm. But what is the sin thing?
I was listening in the first hour, and I'm glad you guys brought up some of those stories about burning Harry Potter and burning this kind of stuff. And I believe the church, a lot of the church, not all churches, but most of the church has done a horrible job of really understanding the Bible and using the spiritual world around it that God has given us. And sin is kata. Sin is missing the mark. Throughout the Old Testament and New Testament, there's moral sins, whatever you want to get into. Sin is missing the mark. We've all fallen short. Anybody's fallen short. And sin is just missing the mark. God has given us a law, which again, in the Old Testament, God didn't want to give us the law. We asked for the law because on Mount Sinai, when Moses wrote the 10 Commandments.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well,
it was kind of a rhetorical question because clearly Trevor and I do know what sin actually means. We get what you're saying, but what I'm trying to I'm trying to say that like I think the way that we would both act in our day-to-day life, we probably are justifying it in a lot of the same ways. I don't think you would not hurt a child because you are remembering the story in the Old Testament and that you have this moral law written on your heart, and therefore you're going to look up to the sky and remember that God said to do whatever. I think you're going to do it because you're going to see this child and you're going to say like, oh, I don't want to hurt her because it would look like it would harm her.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. But there's some people that don't, and there's some people that look at a child and say, "Wow."
Yeah, and we have we can explain that. I'm just gonna okay. I think that we have
I get what you're saying.
David, I'm just gonna mute you for a second. Just take a deep breath here. We have also explanations for that under like a naturalistic hypothesis, like or a naturalistic worldview too, is that like, yes, there are people who don't fall into that. They're called psychopaths. There are people who step outside that, and they are people that we work towards either rehabilitating or keeping away from society. It's not like it's every other person that you meet in the street is a psychopath ready to kill you if they don't believe in God. So I don't know, this conversation is kind of making me feel exhausted because I feel like I think that we can agree on well, first of all, we have to agree on that we have the same goals. So if you don't want to agree that like harm is something that we should work towards eliminating, then we're not going to get very far in the conversation. And I understand where you're coming from. I used to believe the same thing. I used to believe that we had to do things because of a higher power had given us that, and then given us this law to live by, or that, what you were saying, that it's like written on our hearts. I think that that's a nice way to kind of account for all these really nice atheists that are out there not doing evil. But ultimately, I feel like you can appeal to a higher power as much as you want, but unless you have good reasons to believe in your higher power, we're just going to run in circles until you provide some sort of evidence that your God is real. So David, I do appreciate you calling in. I am going to let you go now because we are kind of getting close to the end of time here, and we've got a few more things to go through before we head off for the evening. But whew.
my friend told me not to get angry before that, so I just kept trying to remind myself that. But that was a fun one. I think because I never got the point of like why like one existing, like even if his idea did exist, what evidence we have for that, or even like why it's a better option, like why we prefer his option. I don't know, just he said my thing's different than your thing, and that's all I got from it.
And I do feel like that as soon as Hitler gets brought up, I'm like, okay. I understand that is an easy one to jump to, and it gets brought up like I don't know if theists know this, but like PSA to all the theists out there, atheists, agnostics, whatever, we all hear about Hitler like way more than you think we would. The appeal to Hitler, Stalin is unbelievable how often it comes up, and it's not as shocking when you bring it up as part of this argument. I'm more interested in how our day-to-day life is happening right now and how we're making decisions right now. So anyway.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
It's
I'm trying to see. I'm just going to check and see if we do have time for another call, but we do have a couple other things to hit before we this has gone by so fast. We're already almost at time here. Okay. So before I'm not sure if we're going to take another call, but we'll take a quick moment here to just do a quick. Well, Trevor and I are going to catch our breath after that one. And then we're also going to just do a quick promo to show you all the other shows that happen on the ACA. If you didn't know, Truth Wanted is part of a bigger network, the Atheist Community of Austin, and which puts on shows such as the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen and Secular Sexuality. I never say that right the first time. So if you didn't catch our shows this last week, here's a little bit of what you missed.
You mentioned those like dumbly dumbs. They come in for the very first time and are like, "Oh, I'm such a badass master," and ain't nobody buying it. Just be you, be humble.
I personally can't exercise any demons into pigs, or heal blind folks using dirt and spit.
you know I was gonna make. Hey, a non-profits episode without a Monty Python reference is a non-profits episode I don't want to be a part of.
Name one chemical that self-replicates.
DNA.
Thank you. I really appreciate your advice and the fact that I got to speak to someone that's, I think, one of the most influential people in the atheist community.
Well, I don't know if I can go that far with Dave, but he's pretty cool.
That's great.
Oh my God. I love that one with MD Aware. He's like our new hotshot here. He like just showed up out of nowhere and is like the coolest person ever. So
that's fantastic. And then Katie doing the
so great. Did you say you said you had Dave Warnock, who's at the end there? He's been on your podcast as well?
Yeah, he's one of the few guests we've had. It was just a 10-minute quick interview. I feel
that's awesome.
It's one of like the times that I asked the dumbest question. I cut it out. I don't remember what it was, but I felt so awful afterwards. I'm like, well, he's never gonna do anything with me again. But no, it was great. He was awesome, and I'd love to. Yeah.
he's somebody that like anybody who's like kind of in the online atmosphere needs to like just hang out with just a little bit. He's so much to offer. He's so, I don't know. I adore him. He was one of my first guests that I had on here as well too. So nice. really, really love that guy. We are getting pretty close to the end of our time here. I can't believe I went too fast this time. I was having too much fun. I do want to give a few opportunities here for people who are watching to support the show. If you like what we do here and want to be a part of it, there's a few ways you can support us. One of them is through our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/truthwanted, you can become a patron. And we do a shout out each week. You get a little time, your name up on the screen, and you get a little bit of awareness from us and a quick thank you that way. If you want to also become a member here on YouTube, there's a few different prices there. I think if it's as low as 99 cents, you can join and get those little cute emojis of Dan's face. And I don't know what else they have. And then you also get to skip past, I think, some of the time delay when you're in the chat during the live show. So that is really cool as well. If you are looking for some, I have to show this because this is my first time wearing my own merch. If you're looking for some Truth Wanted merch, we do have that as another way to support the show. There's t-shirts and hoodies and stickers and masks. I wore this shirt out for the first time today and I had a lot of people looking at me sideways. So I'm hoping that eventually that causes some local people to maybe call in here. Get some West Coast Canadians calling in and I don't know, asking some questions that way too. And
Amazing.
we also do have a couple other ways that you can continue the conversation after the show. Keep sharing your stories about woo and what other things people around you are talking about. We have the Facebook group. The Facebook group is a fan-run group, run by the fans, for the fans. It's a great place to just connect with other people, continue to share these stories or ask questions about what we've been talking about this evening. Another great place is the Discord. And cool fact, Trevor and I will both be in the Discord after the show. Yeah. We're going to be hanging out there for a little bit. So the Discord is also fan run. So you can go to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And we'll be there after the show for a little bit if you want to come by and chat with us. And also email. I've got a few more things here. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at truth@atheist/community.org. So if you have any questions about the show or want to ask about anything coming up on this show, or even see if we're going to be okay on our Sunday show, because, you know, it's pretty scary what we're going into here into the haunted house. Maybe you have some concerns about that. You could email us over there. And we'll just leave it at that for now. I'm really, really excited about our Sunday show. Trevor, I hope you were able to come maybe swing by in the live chat. We are actually going to be having this is new for our ACA shows. We're actually going to be having super chat feature on that night. So if anybody is watching and wants to kind of join in on the haunted action, we'll be announcing it that night how you can get through maybe, I don't know, ask some questions to some of the, maybe I think we're going to have a Ouija board there, but we'll see. I don't want to give any more things away. And that's one of the last, I have one more thing to say, but before I go to that, Trevor, how can the audience get a hold of you? And where can they find your podcast that is so funny and so interesting and entertaining?
Well, the podcast you can pretty much find anywhere that you get podcasts. So we're on all the things, and we're on thesonarnetwork.com as well. And also I'm on YouTube. I do video essays there, and so you can just find me at Believe It or Not on YouTube, and then you can find out my opinions on things and religious trauma and all that stuff.
Yeah, you do cover a wide range of topics on your, it's everything from the really funny stuff, and you and your partner on the show are you guys are so funny together. But your video essays are really interesting too, because you also have you put pictures up and stuff with it too. I find that really cool. You do touch on religious trauma and the history of where these things come from. I'm a really big fan of your show.
Thank you.
So it's binge worthy. I'll just say that. Go check it out. Start from the beginning and just get all the way through it, and then subscribe so you can keep his upcoming shows. Podcasts are kind of a way of life for me. I live with podcasts with kids in the house. I like to keep my headphones on, and they don't even know I'm doing it. So if you're interested, also for the audience, if you're interested in any of the ACA shows in podcast form, where you don't have to see any of this, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcast. And all of those shows put on by the atheist community of Austin are put on there in podcast form. And last but not least, we have one more thing to do. I just want to say a big shout out to our crew for the evening. We're going to take a look at our crew cam. There they are. Hi crew. Thank you, Crew Cat. You guys have been the best. I hope no one got freaked out by all the talk about spiritualism and woo.
Hope no one got haunted.
Yes. If you did, then I'm really sorry. I think we'll have more shows on the weekend that you can call in, and maybe someone can talk about exorcisms. I don't know. So yeah, that's it for our show this evening. Trevor, I want to thank you again for joining me. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it went by really fast. Yeah, it's been really great. So we're gonna head out for the night, and please join us on Sunday for our Truth Wanted special, where Dan will be staying at the Driscoll Hotel. And that is all. Thank you, everyone, and remember to always keep wanting the truth.
Always.
Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat. Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.